Okay, excellent. Welcome everyone to this joint IES and Society for the Environment webinar, Chartered Environmentalists across the sector. This webinar is part of the Society for the Environment Spotlight series. We are delighted to be joined by a panel of 4 of our Chartered Environmentalists, all from our main communities, to discuss what being chartered means to them and how it has helped their professional development. Our speakers will also discuss the value of chartership to their wider work and to the fields that they work in. You will have the chance to ask the speakers about their journey to becoming chartered and any other questions you may have at the end of all 4 of the presentations. So please do submit these in the Q&A option at the bottom of your screen at any point during the presentation. My colleague Rhiannon will be chairing this discussion after all the presentations and will be on hand to answer any other questions you might have about becoming chartered through the IES. This webinar is being recorded and will be made available on our YouTube channel afterwards. Thank you very much for logging in. So I'm now pleased to introduce our first speaker, Anil Namdeo, Professor of Air Quality Management at Northumbria University. He is also a Fellow of the Institute of Air Quality Management. Thank you so much for joining us, Anil, and over to you.
Thank you very much for inviting me to share my experience of becoming a chartered environmentalist. Let me share my screen, just bear with me for a second. Okay. Good afternoon. I am Anil Namdeo, Professor of Air Quality Management at Northumbria University, Newcastle. I'm a chartered environmentalist, a chartered scientist, a fellow of IAQM, Institute of Air Quality Management, and a fellow of the Royal Meteorological Society. I'm taking you on my journey to become a chartered environmentalist and gaining other professional accreditations. My journey began when I did my BEng in civil engineering in India. I needed the resources and support from the practitioners in my area while I was doing my first degree. Hence, I became a member of the Institution of Engineers, India. Then I went on to do my master's in environmental science and engineering from IIT Bombay. And there again, I needed additional insights in this area. Hence, I joined the Indian Association of Environmental Management. After a couple of years of work, I earned the Commonwealth Scholarship for a PhD in air pollution modeling at Nottingham University, where I developed a set of emission and dispersion models and validated and tested them in Leicester. I benefited significantly from the memberships of the Royal Meteorological Society and the Environmental Protection UK during my PhD. Then I did a couple of postdoc positions at Nottingham and Leeds universities, expanding my work to look at the integrated assessment of the changes in land use brought out by urban form, complex cities versus urban sprawl, how it impacts transport demand, and ultimately air pollution emissions and dispersion of these emissions into atmosphere, mapping of these emissions and mapping them on top of the population map, socioeconomic indicators to ascertain are there any links between exposure to air pollution and health effects or disease burden. I also focused on the sustainability assessment of transport plans and policies, including road user charging and low emission zones. During this stage, I became a member of the IES and IAQM. And with my experience of air quality modeling and so on, I was elected a fellow of the Royal Meteorological Society. Then I joined Newcastle University as a senior lecturer and was promoted as a reader. I was involved in teaching and research on transport and sustainability with a particular focus on air pollution. I started a new MSc on transport and the environment because I noticed at that time that there are not many degree courses, master's degrees, especially offering insight into what the links between transport and the environment are and how do you assess the transport and sustainability impacts of transport activities. So with that new MSc, we had to start add new modules. So I added a new module on air pollution, another one on traffic and environmental management for sustainability, and another one on economic and environmental appraisal of transport activities. These courses, more specifically air pollution, was offered as a CPD course, and it was accredited by IAQM, which was very important for its member to gain valuable points. I also gained the charter status for the program and degree accreditation. So sorry, I need to say this again. So at that time, the university imposed a condition because our degrees were accredited by chartered institutions, and they needed at least 50% of the member to be chartered, either scientists or environmentalists or and holding any other charter status. So I worked to get my chartered scientist status and chartered environmentalist status. Excuse me. And then I became a professor of air quality management at Northumbria University in Newcastle. I mainly focus on 3 M's of air quality, which are monitoring, modeling, and management. My work also focuses on climate change mitigation and adaptation, and also the environmental justice aspect. And during this process, I became a fellow of IAQM. Last slide here. So what are the benefits of becoming a chartered environmentalist? I was fortunate to attend numerous CPDs, seminars, and webinars given by the best practitioners and researchers in varied fields. It enhanced my network with peers when I was at the early stage of my career. Through interaction with other members, I expanded my work into new areas, for example, air quality sensors, environmental justice, behavioral changes, and economic impact. I was able to provide inputs to developing new guidance and policy. It has also created new opportunities. For example, I do evaluation of consultancy reports and have been appointed as an independent advisor by some consultancies. All this has certainly helped me in my career progression. I will say that this journey is very enjoyable and rewarding, and I wish you all the best. I will be happy to answer any questions either now or towards the end. Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you very much, Anil. Really great to hear about your journey and about the benefit that Chartered Environmentalist has had for your career. That's excellent. So I'll go on to introduce our next speaker. So I'd like to introduce Amy Cox, Principal Environmental and Sustainability Consultant at McDonald and a member of our EIA community. Amy, over to you.
Thanks very much. So yeah, again, as Anil said, thank you very much for coming to listen to us today. I don't have any slides to share with you, so you're going to have to put up with looking at me for 5 minutes, but I'm going to focus a little bit on the benefits of becoming chartered and what it's meant for my career since I gained my chartered environmentalist status. So just a little bit of background. I got my Bachelor of Science from the University of Manchester in Geography and Geology, and then went on to do a Master of Science at Leeds University in Sustainability and Environmental Consultancy. And as part of that master's programme, I did my research project for McDonald, which is the company that I work for now. And that was looking at developing a business case for a new sustainable design tool to be used in optioneering. And from my internship, I've then stayed with the team. I'm based in Leeds, and I've been with them now for 8 years. And most of the work that I've done has been around UK and global infrastructure projects. So doing environmental assessments, including EIA, sustainability strategies for clients, appraisals of the infrastructure. But more recently, I've been doing more project management and also managing a team of environmental management specialists. So McDonald as an organisation are very supportive of all of their employees achieving their chartered status, whether that be chartered engineer, chartered environmentalist, and with lots of different bodies and organisations too. However, it is really strongly encouraged that we do achieve this status, because quite often our clients actually ask for it. They want to know that the teams delivering the infrastructure and the projects for them are experienced, are competent, and it gives them that confidence that they've got the right people and the best people coming up with the solutions to their projects. So therefore, for McDonald, they have to make sure that they are putting in all of the support and necessary practices to support their staff in gaining that status, so that they can then put us onto projects and fulfill our duties and the roles that our clients are asking for. Now, I'm sure this might be a rut that some of you are stuck in now. I certainly put off getting my chartered status. It was something that I probably left a little bit later than I should have done, because in my head, I was very busy at work, had a lot of work commitments. And to be honest, I'm not sure I fully understood a lot of the benefits that getting chartered environmentalist status would bring. So one piece of advice I would have is not to do what I did and leave it all to the very last minute, but actually start to think about your chartered journey as early as you can, because I think when you do come around to wanting to get that status, it won't feel as overwhelming as it perhaps did for myself, where I hadn't been building up to it and thinking about the competencies that I needed till maybe slightly later on in my employment. And the reason that I picked the Institute of Environmental Science, because some of you might be familiar with other institutes that EIA practitioners and sustainability practitioners are part of. But the reason that I picked this institute was very much for their cross-disciplinary nature. A lot of the webinars and the publications and the teams that they have cover a lot of technical matters that cover the breadth of, say, the EIA topics that I have to cover, and I have to kind of advise on and work with those teams. So for me, being within quite a cross-disciplinary institute meant that I would be able to keep up my technical competence and understanding in lots of different subject matters that therefore would help me keep progressing in my role as a general environmentalist and managing wider environmental teams. So in terms of how I got my charter status with the Institute, I did that get chartered in a day option. For me, I was doing this at quite a busy period in my life. It was in the middle of a house move. I just returned off a secondment with Alpha BT. And for me, I needed to be able to focus and get it done in quite a short space of time. So for me, that was the best option. But again, there's lots of different options, and I think it really does depend on personal circumstance. But in terms of just a couple of key points as to how being a chartered environmentalist has helped me over the last couple of years since achieving my status was, first of all, having to map out your competencies and write your personal statement and your report really allows you to kind of take a bit of a step back and recognize what are the lessons that you've learned on your journey as an environmentalist in whatever discipline that might be. And thinking, okay, so I learned that lesson, but so what? How have I then applied that to my future learning and my future projects? But also, what are your strengths and qualities as a person, and how can you bring those to your future projects? It really is a bit of time to be able to self-reflect and see where do you carve yourself out as a bit of a niche on projects? How do you make a difference going forward so that you can sell yourself both internally within a project and say, I want to do this role because I'll be able to make a difference here, here, and here, or even for future job opportunities and applications as well. It really gives you that chance to see where you might want to further develop, but also where your strengths and skills lie. And for me, it's also given me greater opportunities to be given more responsibility on projects. So I said more recently, I've been doing more project management and people management. And since kind of becoming chartered internally, it allows you to go for promotions and to put yourself forward for roles, but also it helps to build trust with the people that you work with and also our clients and communities and stakeholders, that you know what you're talking about, and also you're part of an institute in terms of keeping up to date with your knowledge and best practice, so that what you are advising people is relevant and the most up-to-date information. And I've recently taken on, well, I say recently, a couple of years now, it feels recent, taken on a role as a project manager for a station redevelopment scheme in West Yorkshire. And what that has allowed me to do is use my environmental and sustainability knowledge and expertise and put it at the heart of the decision making of the project. And that's because I'm now at the core of the decision making. I'm on the front line with the client, the project team, the engineers, the designers, and therefore I'm able to challenge the decisions being made, identify where those opportunities are that we can influence at an early stage, And because I'm there as kind of the project manager, I've been able to shape the scope of the project from the outset to make sure that all those things that as environmental and sustainability practitioners we wish happened on projects, I can now make that a reality and try and educate people as we go as to the difference that it can make by having more of a multidisciplinary project management team, not just engineers, not just sole project managers, but also having environmental and sustainability in there too. And what it's also allowed me to do is use one of my strengths, which I identified through my competencies and my chartership journey, was around stakeholder engagement and stakeholder management, to be able to make a bit of a difference into something that can be sometimes quite a standard process. And that was around our public consultation. And I was able to develop and lead consultation workshops with younger members of the community that quite often don't have a voice in these types of situations because they don't follow the likes of the councils on social media, etc. But these are the ones that are going to be using the infrastructure. So again, within my role, thinking about socially inclusive outcomes, I was able to kind of put forward this suggestion to our client who I'd already built up trust with, and use my sustainability knowledge to think about how we can do something different to make a bigger difference on the scheme. So yeah, I think that's probably about it. So I'm going to hand back to Ebony now, and again, happy to take questions now or at the end as well.
Oh, thank you so much, Amy. It's excellent to hear about how Chartership has really helped your career, and some great advice and insights there too, especially about thinking about chartership early and how beneficial chartership can be for recognizing competencies in yourself and your strengths. So thank you, Amy. That was excellent. I'd now like to introduce David Kerr, Principal Consultant at Delta Simmons, a member of our land condition community and chair of the Ireland Brownfield Network. Thanks, David. I'll hand over to you.
Thank you very much, Ethna. I'm just pulling my slideshow up here now. First of all, I'd like to apologize. I somehow, in the depths of summer, have managed to catch a non-COVID illness. I've got a horrible cold, so I'm not feeling the very best. So if anyone can't understand me, let alone by my accent, please let me know. I'm happy to field questions at the end. So as Ethna kindly said there, my name is David Kerr. I'm a principal consultant with Delta Simmons, primarily based in the UK, although I live and reside in Northern Ireland, which is where the majority of my work is. My experience and background is primarily as an environmental scientist. I joined Delta Simmons in January to work primarily in their environmental due diligence division, but also across geo-environmental contaminated land risk assessments and investigations throughout Ireland and the UK. I'm now fortunate enough to be working on projects throughout Europe, particularly Southern Europe, France, Spain, and Italy for a rather large global retailer. I've also have some background in remediation, specification, supervision, waste assessment and management, and just to add a little extra string to my bow as invasive species surveyor as well. I'm also the current chair of the Ireland Brownfield Network, which is doing a lot of work in partnership with the IES to promote chartership and professional competencies throughout Ireland. Ireland's in quite a unique position, particularly after Brexit, in that we have two distinct jurisdictions on one island that operate cross-border. So we have transboundary waste issues. We have consultants working north and south of the border, and different legal and regulatory regimes, some of which require different qualifications and backgrounds. So the network has been set up to share experiences and to really promote the profession throughout Ireland, and to try and better the environment and use of brownfield land across the entirety of Ireland. So if anyone does any work or resides in Ireland or would like to join the IBN, then please visit the Ireland Brownfield Network website. My chartership journey started with my master's program with the University of Ulster in Northern Ireland. It was an accredited degree program with the IES, and knowing little of the institution or indeed of the society and environment at the time, it sounded like a good thing to become a part of, and I haven't regretted that decision since. Some of the jobs that I've applied for since completing my master's, they all require or would prefer to have someone working towards membership or chartership at some stage in their career. And being fortunate enough to have my degree program accredited by the IES really helped me demonstrate that through membership at the time. The second element of it after completing my master's was being able to avail of the excellent scheduled events, webinars, and networking opportunities that are provided by the IES, whether that's through scheduled webinars online like this one, or through the quarterly magazine that comes as well. And the other significant benefit of working towards chartership, no matter what stage you are in your career, is being able to track your CPD and actually put some value and numbers against what you're doing day to day, whether that's in-job experience or if it is scheduled events that you can allocate time to. One of the things I work on with our junior staff and graduate members is to start thinking of the knowledge gaps and how we can use scheduled CPD to plug those knowledge gaps and really develop as a more rounded consultant, no matter what their technical field, whether it's air quality like Amy's background or Anil's background and Amy's background, or whether it's in geoenvironmental, geotechnical, noise, ecology. It's all about identifying those uncertainties and gaps in your knowledge that you can plug through the excellent CPD that the IES offers. So after about 5 years of full-time work experience, I applied to do the chartership in a day course, similar to Amy, in August 2018. A different time when you could travel and actually do the chartership in a day face-to-face. A very intense experience, but I feel a very, very worthwhile one. As Amy's already alluded to, it does give you that opportunity to step back and look at your knowledge and skills and really think about how they align with the IES's core values of sustainability, and where you think you can start to plug those gaps as your career progresses. And then being chartered since then has helped me my career develop. Within a couple of months of being chartered, I was fortunate enough to progress within the company I was at the time. It doesn't stop with chartership. It doesn't stop with those 3 extra letters at the end of your name. The key thing then is to continue to progress, and you'll have noticed a theme that CPD and progression is in both the slides that I've shown so far, whether that again is through in-job CPD or through scheduled events. The reason being is that very much like sustainability is a continual improvement process, and we constantly need to be questioning where we can improve and where we can continue to integrate the ethos of sustainability in our day-to-day jobs, and really question how we continue to align with the competencies that are required within not only the registered environment technician and the registered environment practitioner, but also the chartership application. Since becoming vice chair and then chair of the IBN, I've been fortunate enough to have to work quite closely with Ethne and the other staff members at IES to work in collaboration to holding scheduled events and promoting chartership in Ireland where things are slightly different, and I hope that journey will continue on. So what the theme of this is what has it meant to me? Well, for me, being a chartered professional really gives to the outside world and also to yourself that recognition of your professional status aligned to a code of conduct and core values. It says that you've been recognized by your peers as a valued professional within your field. It also continues to give you access to the CPD resources and networking opportunities. And when applying for future jobs later on in your career, it can be a requirement to at least be working towards it. And the big thing I've noticed as my career has progressed is that more and more work packages, proposal offers, and even framework tenders are now starting to require chartership as a scoring matrix within that. So being a chartered member of the IES and society environment within your company, within your field, definitely adds value to you as an employee, giving you that that strength of purpose in your career. I'm available for any questions. If anyone does want to contact me after the webinar, then feel free to contact me at my @assignments email address or through the Ireland Brownfield Network. And thank you again, Ethne, for the opportunity to present.
Oh, thanks, David. That was great. And yeah, from my point of view, I'd love to carry on the collaboration between IBN and IES.
You say that
also...
now.
It's also great to hear about how your journey started off in an IES accredited program. So that was brilliant. Thank you very much. Finally, I'd like to introduce our last speaker. So Dr. Anthony Brooks is a marine scientist at ABP-MER and a member of our marine and coastal science community. Thanks, Anthony, and over to you.
Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Firstly, I'll apologise, I haven't got my camera on. I've got a slightly ropey internet connection, so I'm just going to stick with audio. As Anthony said, I'm Tony Brooks. I work for ABP-MER down in Southampton. Anthony, pop onto the next slide, please. Oh, sorry, I said to begin with. I'm just going to briefly give an outline of my role, my career path to date, and then a little bit on how becoming a chartered environmentalist has benefited my career and also how it benefits my employer. Next slide, please. Yeah, so just very briefly, as mentioned, I work for ABP-MER, which is a marine consultancy based down in Southampton. I've worked there since completing my PhD, so I've been there for nearly 13 years now, joined in 2008. We work across a wide variety of marine sectors. Me personally, I do a lot in offshore wind and subsea cables, but I also do a lot for our parent company, Associated British Ports, with regards to port development. And there's about 50 of us based in Southampton, and I guess the majority of staff have a background in environmental sciences. Next slide, please. So just briefly, I think in terms of me and my job role, I have a variety of different roles with ABP-MER. Primarily, I'm a marine coastal processes specialist. I do a lot of EIA related work for developers. I also, a relatively large component of my role relates to marine climate change, particularly looking at sea level rise and trying to understand how projections of sea level rise should be best applied to some of the project work we're involved with. I also got a bit of my time is involved with project management, so making sure projects are delivered on time and to budget. And more recently, I have an increasing proportion of my role relates to business development, so looking at new business opportunities for the company going forward. Next slide, please. So just very briefly, my undergraduate degree was in physical geography a little while ago now, and that was in Durham, and I went on to do a PhD in Dublin at Trinity College, looking at sea level change and coastal evolution. Having got my PhD, I lectured for a year and then came back to the UK. Didn't really know what I wanted to do with my career, to be honest with you, but I saw a job advert with ABP-MER and it sort of broadly fitted the skill set that I had, and I've been with them ever since. I joined as a researcher back in 2008, had a couple of years of project experience for getting my Chartered Environmentalist status in 2010, and then sort of over the last decade or so, I've sort of progressed a bit in the company, and as mentioned on the previous slide, whilst I'm still doing a lot of technical work, my role has sort of broadened out into other roles as well as just the technical stuff. Next slide, please. I'm sort of conscious of time, and a lot of what I had to say also has already previously been said by particularly by David and Amy. I think on the main point I'd say on this slide, I think one of the main points I'd definitely say getting Chartered Environmentalist status back in 2012 after I'd been with ABP-MER for a couple of years, it definitely had a big bearing on me getting I guess my first significant promotion with the company to consultant grade. Sorry, yeah, I got Chartered Environmentalist in 2010 and then got promoted about a year or so later. So it definitely had a big bearing on that and sort of demonstrated effective interpersonal and communication skills to my employer. And then finally on the next slide, please, Ethne. Again, obviously a lot of what I was saying here has already been said, but I just second what I think David and Amy were saying with regards to how Chartership status is viewed particularly by some of the developers and customers we work for. Increasingly, I'm seeing that when I'm writing EIA chapters, for example, in my specialist field, increasingly there's a requirement to set out the credentials of the authors right at the start of those chapters. I'll then be presenting that information to stakeholders and statutory nature conservation bodies. And I think obviously there's various reasons why developers are keen to show that professional sort of suitability and competence. I mean, I think probably one of the other main things is it provides reassurance with regards to impartiality, and that we're striving to achieve the sort of the highest environmental standards with the work we're doing. I think those are the main things I wanted to say, and so obviously keen to take any questions from anyone.
Thank you, Anthony. That was great. It's really interesting to hear about the value of CEnv across all the different sectors. You obviously all work in very different areas, so that's been really interesting. Thank you. Please, attendees, put any questions that you have in the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen, and we're going to move on to the Q&As now. I just wanted to say a massive thank you to all of our panelists, and I'd like to hand over to my colleague Rhiannon, who's going to be chairing the discussion session, and she can also answer any questions to do with the kind of process of getting chartered through the IES. So thanks, Rhiannon, over to you.
Brilliant. Thank you, Ethne, and thank you as well to all of our presenters so far. We've got about between 10 and 15 minutes to take some questions and to actually maybe hear a little bit more from you, our speakers today. If you'd like to pop your cameras back on, if they are working, so that we can see you as well. And I just wanted to start off, if that's okay, with one question, which is a question that we often get in the office here, is from prospective candidates asking about how they can sort of map their experience onto the competencies, or if they come from a particular field and they're not entirely sure how their work really applies to the sustainability and that aspect of the sustainability sort of aspect of the Chartered Environmentalists. So I just wanted to put that question to sort of all four of you, of how did you find that experience of mapping your own experience and your own knowledge to the competencies? Were there any areas that were a bit more challenging, and how did you overcome them? Amy, I can see you nodding, so I'll pass to you first, if that's okay.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Thanks, Rhiannon. So I guess this kind of goes back to one of the tips that I gave in terms of doing that actually felt quite overwhelming when I did it, because it was something that I tried to do in one chunk and one go, and you suddenly sat there thinking, okay, blimey, what have I done over the last 6-7 years that relates to these competencies? And you're trying to think back, and actually a tip that someone else gave me, and it's a requirement anyway, is to get your CV, and you have to map each of the competencies against everything that you've done. So whether that be individual projects, if you've just worked in one place, so that's what mine was within Mott MacDonald, or it might be across different places that you've worked and different research that you might have done. And that's a really good way of just a really bite-sized kind of chunk of, okay, this competency I definitely met when I was working on this job, this competency then, and then you then expand from there and kind of develop those into more detail. So that's how I started, because it can feel a bit overwhelming and daunting when you first look at it. So Neil's got his hand up. Go on, Neil.
Yeah, I'm coming from, very different perspective, because most of my career has been in research and teaching. And a lot of research projects have been looking at the sustainability impacts of any development projects. It could be transport or even government policy. And unless you have a broader vision of different aspects of sustainability, you would not do justice to this assessment. So that's why in my career, I started learning about air pollution, noise, and land use, and how it affects even the behavior, the mode choice. Why do people travel by the mode they choose, and how far they travel, and so on. So behavioral changes. So from engineering to environmental science to social science areas, you have to learn about this. And IES, I think, is one of the best platform where you have different disciplines talking about the expertise in this area.
Brilliant, thank you, both Amy and Anil. David and Anthony, would you have anything to add?
I think they've covered it both from my point of view.
Yeah, I agreed. I think Amy's tip about the going through the CV is certainly a good one, really good one.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you, everyone. So we've got a question here in the Q&A, It's directed just at Amy, but there might be sort of wider applicability in there as well. It's what made you focus, or what made you, sorry, decide to focus your dissertation on McDonald out of all of the companies out there, from someone who is going to be an environmental engineering master's student in September, so it's starting to think about their dissertation topics?
Okay, so I guess I had my job maybe made slightly easier for me that the master's course that I did at Leeds Uni, actually it was a requirement that you did your dissertation for an organisation, and they already have a lot of partnerships with lots of different types of organisations, whether they be public sector, charity organisations, research organisations, consultancies like McDonald, and they approached these different partners and said, what are you currently interested in the field of sustainability or consultancy? And there were a huge different range of kind of topics that came back, and it was a bit like an interview process. We had to apply for the one that we found most interesting and say what we could kind of bring to them. So I guess mine was already partially set up for me. But one thing I would say is I definitely found doing a dissertation for somebody on a real life issue that they were wanting to solve and that you knew you could contribute to, rather than it being something hypothetical, certainly made my time doing my dissertation a lot more enjoyable than the one for my undergraduate. So if you do have the opportunity to approach organisations, or there's a certain sector you're interested in, put the question out there and see if anyone's got a problem that they'd like you to solve, because I think that will make your dissertation journey probably a lot more valuable.
I know from my point of view in Ireland, some of the universities have good relationships with some of the companies that are present throughout Ireland as well, particularly in Belfast. And certainly from an employer's point of view, having students come to you with an idea, with that enthusiasm to want to undertake research for a topic, is more valuable than any qualifications that you can present us with. For me, seeing that enthusiasm and seeing that interest in a particular topic is what I like to see. It shows drive, it shows interest, it shows initiative. So as Amy already said, don't be afraid to approach anyone, particularly through the likes of LinkedIn. I got my first work experience through LinkedIn. So it's definitely a good thing to do.
Fantastic, thank you, David. And I know that we've got a sort of between Anil and Anthony, you've also both completed, well, actually PhDs as well. When sort of deciding your the direction, I guess, of your study and career there, were there any other considerations in terms of maybe your future career progression and that sort of thing that you thought about when deciding your dissertations or topics?
Can I go?
Please.
Yes, certainly. You will not believe, when I submitted my PhD topic for approval, I had one topic in mind and submitted and started working on it. And after 3 months, I realized, oh, this is more theoretical. I need to do something related to the real world. So then I changed my PhD topic after 3 months to understanding emissions from traffic and how the pollution is dispersed in the atmosphere. And that was late 90s. So you could see that was just the beginning of when we were trying to understand how traffic and transport affects air quality in cities. So I'm very pleased that I changed my topic to a real world problem.
Sorry, thank you very much. Anthony, do you have anything to add?
Not a great deal. I mean, I'd like to say I sort of had a grand plan in terms of how I sort of foresaw my career planning out, but I'd be lying. I chose my PhD topic, or ended up doing my PhD on a topic which I just really enjoyed. I did my undergraduate dissertation on sea level and wider issues of climate change. Found it fascinating, and then an opportunity arose to go and look at that for as part of PhD. And sort of went on from there. And then, as I said in my brief talk, when I finished my PhD, I didn't quite know what I wanted to do with my career, but and I wasn't familiar with consultancy at all. But I was just, I guess it was a question of being in the right time, the right place. Saw a job advert in a field which was sort of consultancy related, but drew upon my skill set and went from there. I mean, I think the only one of the main tips I'd give to anyone at that sort of stage in their career, having finished an undergraduate degree, is if you're going to go on to a master or a PhD, you just need to do something that you're really, really fascinated in and enjoy doing. If you're not if your heart's not really in it, you're probably going to struggle to sort of get the most out of it. For me, doing my PhD, it wasn't a job at all. It wasn't hard work. It was just enjoyable, and it made my life a lot easier.
Fantastic, thank you. And I think that touches upon something that we really often see in our CEnv candidates, is actually a real passion for the work that you do, a real drive for sustainability within the work that CEnv candidates are doing. And you can really see that come through both in the reports and the interviews. So I think that's a fantastic advice to sort of start out as you mean to go on, whether or not you've got an idea of where your career journey will be going, but start out doing something that you do really care about, because you will be able to apply that to future jobs and to future sort of, I guess, as we've said, the environmental sector is so expansive and so diverse, and you'll be able to find sort of your place within that, and definitely when looking for your CEnv as well. I want to end by giving you all a chance to sort of give your top tip, especially from your sector and from your experience becoming CEnv. Before we do, I've got a really quick question. I'm going to see if we can get that answered in maybe up to a minute. I'm working in REACH, ROHS, CA, Prop 65, etc. compliance for different products. How will this help me further? And I'm going to jump in on that. Amy, fantastic.
I have to admit, I just did a really quick Google of some of those acronyms because they're not ones that I was familiar with. But from what I've seen, I know, again, a lot of auditing roles and permitting and compliance roles. As you progress to become more senior, I don't know what your background is and where you're at in your kind of journey at the moment. But again, it's all around, I think, competency and kind of giving confidence to people when you get to that more senior level and approvals, and being able to make sure that you're kind of providing that best advice, and also can help with sideways career movements as well. I've seen David's got his hand up, so I'll hand over to him because maybe he knows a bit more from a technical position on this one.
Not necessarily, Amy, but thank you for the vote of confidence. No, my point is more along the lines of, you have to keep in mind that Chartered Environmentalists and Society of the Environment. Society of the Environment is an umbrella organisation anyway that covers chartership across a range of institutions. So that's point number one. Point number two is that no matter what technical field we're in, uncontaminated land, Anita's air quality, Anthony's marine, we've all signed up to the same sustainability approach. And the third point is as Amy's already covered, it doesn't matter what your technical area is, being a recognized professional by your peers, where you've signed up to a code of conduct, where you've signed up to a set of rules, and you adhere to those, is what gives people confidence in what you're doing. And as all of us have already touched on, you'll often find it is now a preference in job applications, and you've got those transferable skills right across the board.
Fantastic, thank you so much for that. We are bang on the dot for 1:15, but I do want to give you the chance, if you have any absolute sort of last comments on, if it's a top tip about how you've really managed to use your experience to become CEnv, or how that has really benefited you since then. You've got sort of up to 30 seconds if you'd like to add in something there. David, I can see you've unmuted. We'll start with you.
It's not something that I was able to avail of, but I know some of the staff that I'm working with are availing of it. My top tip is identify what best suits you, registered practitioner or registered technician, and go for it. The competencies are aligned with the Chartership application. It allows you to record your CPD when you get to make that Chartership application, and it's basically you're going to be 50 to 75% there by the time you get to that stage. Not something I availed of. Not sure about the other presenters. I'm guessing it was possibly before our time, but that would be my top tip. I can see the staff that I work with benefit from it hugely.
Thank you, David. Anil?
Yeah, I think I'm again coming from academic field, so we are always looking out for guest lecturers and speakers for seminars and so on. If you could contribute to these lectures and seminars, it will give you a valuable experience as well as CPD points as well.
That's fantastic, and great to hear something specifically for sort of academia. That's brilliant, thank you. Amy?
Couldn't unmute, sorry guys. Yeah, I think for me, it's what I said in my presentation. Use the alignment to your competencies as an opportunity to self-reflect, identify what your strengths are, and use those to kind of see where you can make a difference in whatever your role is and whatever your field might be.
Perfect, thank you so much. And Anthony?
Yeah, I think if you're starting out in the role, I think it's my top tip would be to give yourself some time. So familiarise yourself with the competencies, and then don't think it's something that you can sort of tick off in a weekend if you're writing your competency essays or what have you. Just give yourself time to take a step back and think how your career today and your experiences can feed into address those.
Brilliant, thank you so much. And you're correct, even if you do choose our sort of CEnv in a day workshop route, there is a bit of preparation to do beforehand. And we've got some information about how long you might want to expect to prepare, all online and through our information packs as well. Before I close out, I just wanted to pick up on something that David said, which was the Registered Environmental Practitioner. This is actually a brand new registration from January this year. And it's really aimed at those who are early career environmental professionals in the first couple of years who might be thinking about eventually becoming chartered. As he said, it's really similar competencies, and it gives you sort of a flavour for the process without the level of chartership, and it can work to oh, fantastic. We've got a link in the chat for more information about our Chartered Environmentalists. And from that, you'll be able to find out about our Registered Environmental Practitioner as well. It gives you the opportunity to become registered earlier on in your career and demonstrate those skills, qualities, and the knowledge that you've got. So thank you for that, David. And thank you as well, obviously, to Amy, Anil, and Anthony as well for coming and speaking to us today about your experience from across a range of fields and a range of professional backgrounds as well. We do often have questions about how maybe academic work or especially marine work can apply to the Chartered Environmentalists. So it's been fantastic to hear from you guys and to understand how it's really valued and benefited your career journeys. So that is it from us today, just a couple of minutes late. Thank you for sticking with us and for attending, especially on what is one of the hottest days I think we've ever experienced in this country. I hope you found today's webinar beneficial. It's the end of our Spotlight series from SocEnv. So last week we heard all about the Registered Environmental Practitioner, and the week before that we had a more in-depth look into the Chartered Environmentalist itself and how you might go about achieving that. So do catch up on those webinars on our YouTube channel. Don't forget to record today as CPD and any of the other webinars that you catch up on as well. And we will let you know shortly within the next few days once these webinars have been uploaded to our YouTube channel, also on SocEnv's website, so that you can catch up with those. If you are watching on YouTube, please hit that subscribe button so that you can find out when we release our new webinars as well. So thank you again to all of our attendees, and for Ethne for hosting us today, and for our speakers. Thank you to our speakers, to Ethne and our attendees. Thank you for watching, and we hope to see you soon.